Going on. We are live. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the Empowered Women in Business podcast. And I've got more spots open, and I'll be going live all day on September the 27th. I'm doing the 20 podcasts in 20 hours, so there'll be spots available. So I've popped the link in the chat. I'd love to have more of you on because I'm raising awareness, raising engagement, because I'd like to put together another book like this one, like the Stories from the Heart around carers' journeys. And so that's what we're here for today, talking to Chrissie about her journey and about what she does. So welcome, Chrissie.
Hi, Christine. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much.
So tell us a little bit about your journey and your backstory.
Sure. Well, I have a previous life, I kind of refer to it, where I spent a tremendous amount of time in London. I worked in corporate and led the most incredible privileged life with an amazing team around me and an incredible company, traveling the world and doing all the things that any young 20, 30-year-old could dream of. It was an incredible time. And I look back and understand the opportunities that were presented to me during that time were just super incredible. I learned a lot. We left London and moved to Australia and started our family. We have two amazing children, two boys. And in 2015, we went through a diagnosis of our youngest with a life-limiting condition. It's called Duchenne muscular dystrophy. He was 2 years old at the time, and it took us on a bit of a spin. We coincided with a shift from Sydney to Geelong that was already in place. So we left our entire support system. And I'm very open about my journey, and the years that followed that transition were filled with many, many deep, dark moments. The frustration, the fear, the anger, the sadness. It was a shift in my world that nobody can prepare you for, as you well know, and many of your listeners understand. When you go through this experience where you think you have it planned out in one direction, and then something comes along and sort of pulls the rug from underneath you as such. But as the time was going on and I recognized that the thoughts that I was having, the emotions that I couldn't escape, the way that it was manifesting physiologically, migraines, panic attacks, the impact that the situation was having on me, not just as, myself, but also affecting my family, I really started to think, well, what do I do? How do I get out of this place? How do I get back to the old me, where the world was my oyster and I was such a positive, person. And I remember seeing
we've got somebody watching us, which is great. I always like to welcome people, and I love to, if you make a comment, we'd love to hear your questions or anything that you'd like to ask us. I always like to welcome people that are watching us, because the more engagement we get, the better. I'm just wondering if you can say something about Duchenne's muscular dystrophy for people who may not understand what that is.
Of course, thank you for that opportunity. We've actually, September is our awareness month, and it's a part of your DNA that impacts the way that dystrophin is created, what makes our muscles tighter, stronger. So if, for example, we were to go to the gym and do a workout, the muscle fibers, as they bind back together with strength, with children with Duchenne, there is no dystrophin. The coding can't be read in the DNA, and therefore the muscle will break down, and essentially it can't rebuild. And so progressively over time, all the muscles in the body you'll have them filled with fat rather than muscle, but essentially they lose the muscle function. It's very slow and it's quite awful. In 2015, the prognosis was late teens, end of life. So it was a big shock. Zachy did come off his feet. He stopped walking when he was 10. He turns 12 next week. And, part of the reason that I was so inspired by your journey and your experience with NDIS is we have been so blessed to be supported for his wheelchair and the car conversion, and trying to provide the best support that we possibly can for him to still be as happy and engaged and as independent as possible. So that's a sort of a side note, nod to your background as well, Christine. But he is a champion, but I really, coming back to that space of where what was happening was every time someone said, well, what is Duchenne? Because we were in a new town, so new kindergarten, new friends, new environment. I was so anchored into the pain of what happened during that sort of process of the diagnosis. I physically felt the pain in my body when I tried to explain to someone what was happening, because it's like knowing a car crash is coming and you can't do anything about it.
Mm.
And every time I tried to have a conversation, I would not be able to have these words come out of my mouth without breaking down. And that was like, I was like, how do I take hold of this in a better way? And I remember reading a quote that was, I think it's Rachel Martin. It's like, sometimes you have to let go of the picture of what you thought your life would be like and find joy in the story that you're actually living. And I read that and I was like, because I was so focused on all the things that I wasn't able to do, right?
Yeah.
It's not as easy for us to travel, and it's not as easy for us to, do all these things that we had planned. And I was like, well, that's great, but how? How do I stop focusing on all the things that we are lacking in and try and find the joy again? What is that process? Because I felt like I was not in control of what was going on inside my head, my thoughts and my behaviors and that sort of thing. So a friend of mine actually was like, I really think you should go look into NLP. And there's a few other modalities that, are around that emotional release and letting go. Because we keep carrying around this stuff from our past and it impacts on how we're showing up today. And it's really about getting back in touch with yourself at an unconscious level, understanding why you're having these thoughts and why these behaviors coming up, and how to catch them and how to change them. Because I had to be a better role model. If I was going to go and speak, to therapists or friends or, Zaki's school or have interactions and sort of help spread awareness, and in the community and that sort of thing, I needed to be in a much better place myself. So my entire journey began as personal growth. I had no intention of, looking forward to where we are today as a coach and a trainer. It was all about, how do I improve myself to come out of this space and be the best mum, wife, friend that I possibly can be, and get back to that little spark. I'd lost that spark of me during that time.
So for me, in 2006, when I stood in the state election, and it was stood for carers and people with disabilities, and it was at the front edge of what is now NDIS.
Yep.
And I decided at that time that I would only do what I could and not beat myself up, and just be the best mum that I could be. And that's been a journey. And then I went to a personal development thing in 2019, and the presenter went to a person with disabilities and said, do you love your disability? And it's like, oh, how can you say that? How can you but if you don't embrace that journey, then you're sort of missing out on things. And I don't mean to dismiss people's feelings, but I just, sometimes we appreciate things that other people appreciate things differently. We have to sort of look at things differently. Like I often talk about, one day I was going out to got all dressed up and I was getting Imogen up, just spending time with her, and she vomited all over me. And I thought, wow, I could get really angry. I could, and then I thought, she doesn't know any different. She's just where she's at, and she's just love. She's just where she is. So it's about, appreciating our journey and appreciating them for who they are. Your journey's different to mine, and I don't pretend to understand, but it's just different. Yeah.
I think any of us that have, especially when it's, in the space of looking after our children, and just that, as we talk about sort of in that NLP concept of, perception is projection, and the way that you are looking at things, and as you say, you got to look for those little moments. Early, this is a little off topic, but very early in my journey, I met a beautiful person who had actually lost her son through completely different tragic circumstance. And when I was struggling, I used to be like, you know what? I get to give him a cuddle, and I get to, have a laugh and watch a movie and do these things, and what my friend would give for just 2 moments back to cuddle her little Casey. So again, not to take away, and I really don't like to lean into that, there's always someone worse off, but I tried to shift my perspective from being just focused on all the lack and all the what we couldn't do and what he wouldn't do, or potentially couldn't do, and try and shift that perception into, but what can we do? Where can we find the joy, and where can we find inspiration from others in the community that are a little bit ahead of our journey. So I think it's important as well to find that community and find the people to lean into, and understand that it's not rainbows. There are days that are still hugely emotional. But what I didn't understand was there were strategies that I could learn that you can sit in it, just don't unpack your bags there. You've got to have that emotional release as and when, but having the strategy to go, okay, I'm going to pick myself up now, and let's take some steps forward. And that's what I was lacking. So taking sort of control back and putting myself in a place where I was like, well, how do I learn to interrupt the way that these thoughts were coming through? Or how do I learn to hold myself, in a more confident manner when I was going out to speak to someone about, Duchenne, and those type of strategies that I didn't even know about. You don't know what you don't know. So I guess part of this is breaking down that, there are strategies around that you can learn that will help you, not just, in this caring role, but, as leaders, as businesswomen, people working with teams, just taking back control of what's going on inside your head is like the basic first step.
I hope if there's any carers or caregivers, as I say, overseas, listening to this, I feel this is really powerful, for both of us having come this journey, and as difficult as it is, I like to think that I still have a life and there's still me, and there are, like you say, there's ways to work with it. I feel this is a really powerful conversation. Anyway, I hope that if you're listening, that you can connect with either or both of us and help that journey.
Yeah.
It's not the end of the road kind of thing, but there are ways, like you say, to deal with it differently, to take a different perspective. Like me being thrown up on. There's and different people, and you meet different people along the way. And I don't know if you've heard of the Welcome to Holland poem.
No.
So the lady who wrote that has a child with disabilities. It's very old now, but she says, you're packing your bags and you're off to Italy, and you're going to see the gondolas and the Leaning Tower of Pisa. It's all going to be beautiful, and you get on the plane, and then you land in Holland, and you go, I didn't sign up for this journey, and this is exactly what it's like. I didn't sign up for that. I didn't sign up to have Imogen with special needs, and and you talked about earlier where you had the dreams of what it was going to be like, and you land in Holland, and you go, oh, there's no Leaning Tower of Pisa, there's no gondolas, but then you start to see in Holland that there's tulips and there's windmills and different people, and you see all these people coming back from Italy, and but that's their journey, and now you're in Holland, and it's a different,
That is
different.
such a perfect analogy, because
Yeah.
that's what I was doing. I spent so long standing on the runway going, I'm supposed to be in Italy. That's exactly where I felt stuck. And I just didn't have the tools, and I just had to go through that process to a certain degree before I was ready to step in and go, okay, well, if I'm in Holland, who else is here, and where do we go, and what can we do, and how do we make the most of this? Because every day is precious. There's going to be people listening to this, and there's certainly people in my life that have lost loved ones recently, and I don't know if it's just because we're getting a bit older, but just that realization that life is just so precious, just making every day count, and at the end of the day, when I'm really going off topic here, but at the end of the day, all we have is the love that we've shared, and the inspiration that perhaps we've gained from others, or lent in our experience. So,
and the inspiration that we gain from our the people that we're looking after, caring for, our children. But you came here to talk about NLP, so tell us a little bit about NLP and how that's helped you.
Well, I think there's a lot of stigma for some people around NLP. It's been around for a very long time. When I think about what is it on a really basic level, it's learning how to really communicate with yourself and then using those skills to better communicate with others. So through that process of the journey, as I learned all these amazing tools and I really started to feel like I was gaining some traction with COVID, as a reflexologist at the time, I was so thrilled to be working in a beautiful space that had to be closed. And as we all found ourselves, those of us, especially in Victoria and around the world, that were in that lockdown space, it did open up, talking about perception as projection, it did open up the opportunity to really study quite a bit more. So I threw myself into quite a lot of study, different spaces, hypnotherapy, timeline therapy, but I really wanted to be able to bring myself to a place as a master coach and then as a trainer to be able to say, right, I've got these skills that have helped me tremendously and I've seen help hundreds of people around me. How do I pass this on to somebody else? And so that was our journey. And we have people come to us who are personal growth, like myself. It's like, I just want to understand myself better, or I just really need to then communicate with people, maybe at work or at home, in a more fulfilled way. Beautiful businesswoman. We happened to be in a space where we were servicing women who owned their own business or were running large corporate teams. And we found that the communication model that sits within sort of that foundational NLP was really helping them understand their team better. It was helping them communicate their messages, their learning opportunities, and just finding a cohesiveness, because the understanding that we all process information differently, right? I think for such a long time, and I think back to my corporate days where I was recruiting people into my team, and I just sort of had I remember this very strong belief of, this person is great. They'll be a great asset part of our team, and I can teach them whatever they need to learn the systems and the processes, and often it failed. I put a tremendous amount of time and energy into people who I thought would be great, but they didn't learn the same way as me. They didn't communicate the same way as me. And my recognition now of how important it is to be a really effective leader is to be flexible in the way that you are communicating your message to each person in your team. So that's where, a lot of our work goes, is working with people in that sort of business sense. And then, of course, there's other techniques, people who perhaps want to move out of their corporate role, or sort of moving into a mentorship or a business coach, or people who are already working in therapy. There's also techniques that are inside the body of work of NLP that help you create changes in those behaviours and those habits and those strategies and that kind of thing. But I think it's really at a basic level, what's going on inside my head? Is there something that I would like to change? Are some of those processes not serving me? And then how do I use my skills now to communicate better with those around me? That would probably be my summary. Because I think it gets thrown around a lot, as soon as you sort of start looking on Facebook or social media or that sort of thing, there's different representations of what it is. But I think at a basic level, that's the crux of it.
So I think that being on this journey has taught me different things, and taught me what's different things that are important. So, and I wouldn't be on this pathway, I would have been on that pathway, the corporate, not being at home and all that sort of thing. So has it shown you a different journey and learned different things and that are of benefit that you wouldn't have otherwise learnt?
I mean, completely, 1000%. I loved working in the travel industry. That's where I would have been back. Ironically, when we arrived into Sydney, with our eldest, who was 2 at the time, I actually couldn't, they laughed at me trying to get him into childcare. So I actually had to cancel my plans to return to that corporate space. And that's kind of one of those sliding doors moments, right? Where I was like, actually, if that had happened, the next steps may not have played out. And there are some people that say things, everything happens for a reason. And I really don't like that saying. But the journey that this has taken me on has put me in a space where now that I have the tools and strategies, I can turn around and Alex, my business partner, talks about this a lot when we are training with people who want to become coaches and they're like trying to find their thing. We're like, take your lived experience. You have to. What have you overcome? What are the challenges that were put in your way? And what were the steps that you took to come out the other side? Because now's your time to turn around and help the people that are struggling behind you. Help the ones that are trying to navigate that journey. So I'm in a completely different space than I would have ever imagined for my life. And we just have to have the flexibility to navigate that and sit and go, okay, well, what are the resources that I need? What is the support that I need to be able to move forward? And once you're in a good place, how do you then turn around and help others? I think is basically where this journey has brought me to.
So who do you
talking to you and trying to speak out, and share.
Sorry?
Well, part of this is the ability to then connect with people such as yourself and just say, well, I do have a story to share, and I have not really shared it a lot. And I think part of my responsibility now is being more vocal and being the one to step up and say, look, this is what I've overcome. If that's something that resonates or you need help sort of going through that, here are some steps that could help you. That's a responsibility I think that I have now. So step one is talking to you today.
So tell us, who do you help? And you were talking about some very special offers that you have coming up.
Yes. So whilst we do one-to-one, coaching and breakthroughs, both myself and Alex at the Collective Coaching Academy, we really have this vision of being able to instill these skills if you're looking for that personal growth. If it's a business, if you're a leader in business and it's something that communicating with your team is really important, or perhaps even language and negotiations and sales, and just becoming really aware of the way that you are communicating with other people, clients, colleagues, we communicate all day long. That's really who we absolutely love to help. And then there's also a part of our training, sort of an extended part of the training that really helps people who are keen to get into that sort of coaching space, or therapists who want some more tools in their toolbox for really creating deep change if they're working with clients. But at the moment, we have a course coming up on the 14th of October. It's 4 days. It's online with Alex and I. We do 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. because we know that life can get busy. And there is just this opportunity to come and join us. We're very boutique. We have very small classes. We're very focused on making sure that each person that goes through the process is feeling, confident in their abilities and has a great experience. And so I am offering a code. It's Empowered. We'll put a link in, but the code is Empowered, and it will get you $400 off if you'd like to come and join us for the practitioner certification in October. And then I thought, well, if we're talking about communication and leadership, and so many of the people, your empowered women in business are like, well, what's it about? Give me a little bit of a taste test. Next Wednesday, I'm going to do like a lunch and learn kind of a scenario. I'm going to jump on a webinar and I'm going to share one of my favorite little tips, which is sort of looking at the language that people use that gives you a clue as to what they're doing inside their head with the information, and then how you can relate to them. When people say, oh, I feel like we're on the same page, or, it's just like the information is setting in. Maybe you've got a team and sometimes the message that you're giving, one person understands it and the next person doesn't quite hit the mark. There's reasons for that. So I'm going to teach one of my favorite little strategies next Wednesday lunchtime. So we'll drop that link in somewhere as well, because I want people to have a little taste and go, okay, this is something that I can bring into my awareness. It's going to help me on a day-to-day basis in my business and in my life.
Fantastic. That sounds like a great opportunity. I really like the idea of a lunch and learn. And I also like the idea of the 9 to 3, because I know for me, Imogen gets back at 3. And there's that, if I'm at 3 o'clock, it's like bewitching hour or something, I have to do that change and, have to stop, and I have to put a space in to get time just doesn't go on.
We hear you. Alex and I are both mothers, and we recognize that our market is working and empowering other women. So it is specifically designed to be not overwhelming in the sense that we want you to have these skills, but 4 days is a lot of time to put aside, and we will guide you through that in that space. So that is our biggest vision, is just being able to help other women be the best versions of themselves.
Yeah, fantastic. Is there one last thing that you'd like to share with the audience before we?
I think your audience, taking away from both of us and our journeys, is finding the people that you need to learn the steps from. If I take it back to NLP, it's all about modeling others. It's about looking for those who have the results that you have and then going, if I want to achieve that, what are the steps that I need to take? And that's regardless of whether you're a carer going through the process and adjusting to the new life that you're living, or whether you're a woman in business. And again, we talk about this a lot, networking events and finding those mentors and finding the people who are doing the things that you want to do. But always be looking for the strategies, always be asking the question, because you don't know what you don't know until you start asking, well, is there something that I could be doing to change, what's not working particularly well at the moment? So ask the questions, reach out to your community, and just keep looking forward. And that's all we can do, one day at a time, keep pushing to be a little bit better.
And there is support out there. There's, the likes of Chrissie and myself. I've got the Carers Couch Facebook group, and I'm always happy to support people, who are treading the same journey. And it might not be because of disability, or it might be because, you're facing challenges because of illness. Other things might have come up. So I'm certainly, love to connect and support women. So jump on, make a time to have a chat. And I'll be sharing. This has quite stirred me, this podcast, because of our similar journeys. So thank you for coming on today and sharing your story.
Thank you, Christine. Thank you so much for having me here today.
Yeah, it's been great. All right. Thanks for that.
Bye, everybody.
See ya.